Hello and welcome to this week's End of Days Update. As you can tell, I am not Joe Morris. I'm his nephew, Spencer Grunwald. Well, I'm excited to be with you guys this week. Joe is traveling right now, so it's a little hard to do these EDUs while you're in an airport, so that's why I'm taking over this week. I'm behind the scenes almost every week helping him with content and other things, and the other part of the team is here. So yeah, we're here to help this week, and let's get through it. We've got a lot of info. First of all, make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Helps get the message out, but more importantly, become a partner with us today. Just click the link below and go to our website and help get the message out. Become a partner with us. So this Sunday, Joe will be in Hobbs, New Mexico at Choose Life Church. Saturday, he'll be doing the 6 p.m. service, and then Sunday at 9 a.m., 11 a.m., and he'll also be doing the 6 p.m. graduation service. So then next Wednesday, Joe will be at East Coast Believers Church in Oviedo, Florida at 7 p.m. Okay, got the announcements out of the way. We have got a little bit to cover this week. It's been a crazy week. I'm sure people have seen everything on the news. I want to start with the U.S. and NATO, and there's a number of other factors that all pull into this. So the main theme that I want to talk about is pressure. We use that word a lot, but it's really important because we know what's about to happen in the church. We can feel it, the world can feel it, but it's especially, things are starting to bubble up this week that are really interesting. So number one, the U.S. told NATO that it plans to reduce its forces in Europe. Pretty broad statement, but the interesting part is that it's something the U.S. has said before. It's something Trump has touted quite a bit. What's really interesting is that they're doing it. So they're starting with a few things like they're delaying 5,000 troops to Poland. I think they were going to send some. They're kind of playing some mind games. They're sending a lot of mixed signals to parts of NATO, and they're canceling or withdrawing other parts of the U.S. military. We know that the message is that Europe must defend Europe more. Trump has said things like that. Other U.S. representatives have said that. It's really interesting to go back. I encourage you to watch what Marco Rubio has said with some of the other NATO representatives. It's interesting what J.D. Vance was saying. And again, how do we interpret all this? It's all about pressure. There's a few more things that add to this. So the Russia-Ukraine war of course, has been going on for a long time. Things are starting to escalate a little more. Russia has always kept a lot of things on the ground because in a sense, it's more low-key. I know that's not really war. War is not low-key. But the way Russia's kind of done it is there's been nothing with exclamation points on it until now. So Russia launched a barrage of missiles at Kiev. They've done some stuff like this before, but now they chose to use a hypersonic missile. I encourage you, if you're not sure of the difference between like a cruise missile or a hypersonic missile, there is a big difference. When you see camera footage of hypersonic missiles, in a split second, the target is destroyed. They're moving extremely fast. These things are statements as well. It's not just about the damage. Of course, that's a huge deal, but it's a statement. It's showing the Ukraine and other nations that, hey, if we're willing to do it now, we're willing to do it again. So then they launched a barrage of missiles and they had the hypersonic missile in use. Then Russia warned the foreign diplomats in Kiev to leave because of a future, and air quotes here, systematic attack. This is a big deal because just yesterday, or the day before, 50 countries condemned Russia because of this. They condemned them about it because this is a threat against foreign embassies. All the foreign embassies are in Kiev. Russia said, hey, anybody who's not from the Ukraine, it'd be best if you got out right now. Well, that's a clear sign that Russia is going to do a pretty big barrage or something we really don't want to see. Once again, if they're using hypersonic missiles, this is going to get ugly. So this is something to really watch for. The fact that 50 different nations came out so strongly against Putin and the Russian foreign ministers, this is something to watch out for. So along with all that, we also have the U.S. is pushing for the Arab nations to sign the Abraham Accords. The ones that didn't sign many years ago, he's wanting them to sign again because of the Iran deal that they're trying to get closed down in the next few days here. They've talked about a week or so they want to have it done. We'll see if that really happens. But what this would mean is that those Arab nations would start to contain Iran, which then would get more Western investment. Now that sounds nice. What it really means is that there's two people that aren't going to like that, and that's Russia and China. If the US starts to have a stronghold in Iran, this is a big deal. We know that Iran is held up by China and that Russia has many deals that go on with Iran. Russia and China love the real estate of Iran because it means that nations like the US can't get a foothold in there. If the Abraham Accords start to move forward and those Arab nations hold Iran accountable, you have the muscle of Israel, you have the accountability and the money of those Arab nations, and then if you have US presence in Iran, this is a big deal. This is probably going to force Russia and China, who work together, to make a big decision. We're not sure what that's going to look like, but this is a big deal because, adding to the theme this week of pressure, the U.S. is pushing for a Pacific/Mediterranean alliance with nations like Japan and India, and of course the nations in the Abraham Accords. Japan is one to watch out for. I want to talk about them here at the end. So, to kind of sum this up, you've got pressure on Europe, you've got pressure in the Middle East, which basically means China and Russia, and then there's also some pressure on the U.S., because China pulled out. May not seem like a big deal, but this is a really big deal. China pulled out some leverage, which they pulled out many, many years ago when it came to trade and stuff like that. The fact that they did it now is interesting. China does hold a lot of leverage when it comes to rare earth metals, specifically for magnets. I know that doesn't sound very interesting, but if we can't get those precious metals out to the markets in terms of magnets and all these other rare earth metals, it affects cars, it affects a whole bunch of businesses. It really does affect the world. China has huge deposits of those in their nation. It's the same sort of thing when it comes to Taiwan. Why is the US working so hard right now to build chip factories, to try to figure it out? It's because Taiwan has the market on that. All of our trucks and everything get our chips from Taiwan. We have to figure out some kind of solution because China wants Taiwan, we know that. So again, what does all this mean? It means that someone has to come in on the scene and fix this. We know that the Antichrist, he can't be revealed until we leave, but look at what the world's going to need. The world is going to need an answer. The pressure is mounting. Things are bubbling up. The world is going to need an answer, and they're looking for one. So a couple more things on the ground. Iran had put mines in the water, kind of ocean or sea mines, in the Strait of Hormuz, which made the U.S. fire on them. A lot of back and forth. We'll see what happens there. There's more to unfold. This is interesting. Saudi Arabia has set up air defense systems in case Iran fires at their Islamic pilgrimage sites along some of their holiday times, which are coming up. Crazy to have Islamic nations firing upon the less radical Islamic nations to kind of prove a point and to go back and forth. So when you look at some of the videos, a lot of the systems look like they had U.S. soldiers helping Saudi Arabia figure those out. So it looked like air defense systems from the U.S. So another one is the IDF is expanding its ground forces into southern Lebanon. This is interesting. We will have to see how this unfolds. Again, this is huge pressure on Lebanon. The IDF is going after Hezbollah. So two more here and then we'll finish up. But China did a combat patrol near Taiwan. We were just talking about that. This is another big deal. We will see what happens with Taiwan. The reason I wanted to mention that is because of another player here I want to start talking about that I'm really interested to see here. Joe and I have been talking about them a lot. Now they're starting to come up more. Japan has been increasing their military spending. This is someone to look for, see what they're going to do here. Japan is a big answer to China and Taiwan. They're much closer, and they do have a lot of islands that China might want access to. So we'll see how that unfolds. There's a bonus thing here, though, I want to talk about before we get to the signs. Someone I think you guys could look out for is a guy named Palmer Luckey. He's the guy who invented, back in the day, remember the Oculus Rift, kind of the virtual reality headset? He's a really interesting player. I'd encourage you to look him up on some podcasts. I don't know everything about him, but some of the stuff I've seen is really interesting. He's a guy who knows a lot about China. He's got a defense company. So He's done big contracts with the U.S. military. He's got U.S. AI-powered fighter jets. He's working in stuff in Australia with AI-powered subs. They have a lot of new weapons, a lot of new tech, but he's got really interesting takes on China. He's really someone to watch out for. He said something I haven't forgotten. He said, when the U.S. does war games with China and they start to figure this stuff out, the U.S. runs out of ammunition in about 8 days. If it was an all-out war on the Pacific front with China, if it was a war in the South China Sea, the U.S. runs out of munitions in 8 days. We have some of the best munitions in the world, but it all costs $1 million a shell. He's a guy who wants to get that cost down. He wants to start up the factories, and he's actually got plans to do that, which would really strengthen the U.S., and it's interesting to see what guys like him will do with other nations like Japan and India. So with all that, we always go to the signs every week. Some of the main ones, and I am not as good as Uncle Joe at saying all these, but you've got Israel made a nation, you've got Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two signs, they shall not pass away until all is fulfilled. So good news is that's you and me. You've got the Hebrew language restored, you've got the ritual baths that filled up with water, you've got the fertility of the land of Israel. Israel produces a ton of the fruit and vegetables for all of Europe. It would be like you went to the grocery store and everything you saw seemed to come from New Jersey. That's what it's like in Europe. You have so many things that are produced from Israel. The land is so rich, it's so producing, it preaches for it. It preaches for Israel, preaches for God. So another thing I love to talk about is the 114, I think it's up to the 200s now, species of predatory birds. This is such a big deal. The Bible talks about that God will call upon the fowl of the earth, the birds of the earth, to clean up the land multiple times after some of these huge battles. Think about how crazy this is. You have all these meat-eating birds that have shown up in Israel. Israel is now a huge spot for bird watching. It's one of the main places in the world. That to me is crazy. It would be like you're at a huge building with thousands of people and then 1,000 firefighters show up. There's no fire yet, but could you imagine what it would be going through everybody's head? Oh, by the way, there's 1,000 firefighters. There's thousands and thousands, really hundreds of millions of birds that have started to change migration patterns over Israel. It's really cool to look up. I encourage you. There's a bunch of other signs. Like I said, I'm not as good as Uncle Joe at remembering them all, but I want to encourage you this week. Remember who you are in Christ, the amazing things that we have in Christ. Go out and tell the world what's going on. We're in a generation, I've heard things like Generation Z is the generation, they question everything. Why is that? Because they're looking for answers. If you meet people that are questioning everything, good news is you have the answers. You have the signs that we go over every week. You have the answers in you. You have that light in you. You have the hope that is in you. It preaches for you. When you walk into the room, it's Jesus. When you walk into the room, it's like Jesus walking into that room. That's why people look at you. That's why people see you a certain way. That's why people have questions. That's why small talk comes up kind of randomly to you. It's because people are looking for answers. They know that you have them. Well, there's so much to look at each and every week. We're so excited. Thank you for listening. I'm so excited to fill in for Joe this week. We'll get to more signs next week. We'll get to more things going on. We'll see what sort of pressure mounts up. So yeah, we're so excited. We'll talk to you guys next week. See you next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.